I never thought I'd inherit anything, let alone a house from a great uncle I barely knew existed. My father mentioned him once or twice, Elias, the recluse who lived out in the middle of nowhere, a man who hadn't spoken to the family in decades. When the lawyer's letter arrived, it felt like a mistake. A farmhouse, old and isolated, miles from the nearest town, was now mine. I didn't have much tying me down a dead-end job. A lease ending soon, so I packed a bag and drove out to see it. The place was exactly what you'd expect: sagging porch, peeling paint, windows clouded with grime. Inside, it smelled of dust and time, like the air hadn't moved in years. But what struck me most were the mirrors. They were everywhere, hanging on walls, propped against corners, even embedded in furniture. Every room seemed to glitter with them, catching the dim light in strange ways. I figured it was just Elias's odd taste, some quirk of a lonely old man. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was just glad to have a place to crash, a chance to start over. That was my first mistake. The second night, I stood at the bathroom sink, brushing my teeth. The kind of mindless routine you don't think twice about. The mirror was old, its edges fogged, but it did the job. As I scrubbed, I caught a flicker a split second where my reflection didn't quite match. My hand moved, but the mirror me lagged, just a heartbeat behind. I froze, toothpaste dripping down my chin, staring into my own eyes. They stared back, steady, unblinking. I told myself it was exhaustion. I'd been up late unpacking, exploring the creaky house, and the long drive hadn't helped. I stood there for minutes, daring it to happen again, but my reflection behaved. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed something: a smudged handprint on the inside of the glass, faint but clear, like someone had pressed their palm against it from the other side. I wiped it with a towel, heart thudding, and chalked it up to an old mark. But as I walked through the house that night, passing the mirrors in the hallway, the dining room, the stairwell, I felt it a prickle on my neck, like eyes following me. It's an old house, I told myself. Just nerves. The guest room was down the hall from where I slept, a small space with a single bed, and a full-length mirror bolted to the wall. I hadn't gone in there much. It felt cold, unused, but one night, as I passed by, something caught my eye. A figure, just for a moment, standing in the doorway. I whipped around, heart in my throat, but the room was empty. The mirror reflected the bed, the window, the bare walls, nothing else. I laughed it off, feeling foolish, but the unease lingered. Later that week, I passed the room again, and this time, I saw it clear as day: my reflection in the mirror, walking away, out of the frame, while I stood still. My stomach dropped. I stepped into the room, staring at the glass, but it showed only me now, frozen, pale. I started closing doors to avoid the mirrors, locking them away like they could be contained. But it wasn't just mirrors. The polished kettle in the kitchen, the glass in the windows, every reflective surface, seemed to hold something watching me, waiting. I found the journal while cleaning out a closet, tucked behind a false panel in the wall. It was leather-bound, brittle, the pages yellowed and smelling of mildew. My great-uncle's handwriting was shaky, the words spilling over each other like he couldn't write fast enough. It was a mess of thoughts, sketches of mirrors, symbols I didn't recognize, warnings scrawled in the margins. One phrase kept repeating: "They aren't reflections. They're watchers." Elias wrote about being followed, about seeing things in the mirrors that weren't there: figures, shadows, versions of himself that didn't act right. He described rituals, half-mad instructions about candles and chants to trap them. The final entry chilled me: "Never leave a mirror uncovered after 3:03 a.m. I sat there, journal in my lap, the house creaking around me. I wanted to laugh it off, call it the ravings of a lonely old man. But the handprint, the lagging reflection, the figure in the guest room, they gnawed at me. I checked the clock. It was 2:47 a.m. I grabbed a sheet and threw it over the nearest mirror. It got worse after that. My reflection started showing things that weren't in the room. In the hallway mirror, I saw a chair that wasn't there, tipped over like it had been thrown. In the bedroom, a shadow moved behind me, but when I turned, the room was empty. One night, I glanced at the mirror above the dresser and saw my reflection smile a slow, crooked grin while my face stayed blank. Another time, it turned its head slightly, looking at something over my shoulder. I spun around, but nothing was there. The worst was when I woke up, heart pounding, and saw a figure in the mirror standing over my bed, motionless, staring down at me. I scrambled to turn on the light, but the room was empty, just me, sweating alone. These weren't tricks of the mind. Something was in those mirrors, mimicking me, studying me, trying to become me. The basement was the last place I wanted to go, but I couldn't avoid it forever. I needed answers, and the journal hinted at something down there. The stairs groaned under my weight, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, I found them two antique mirrors, massive, facing each other across the room. Their frames were carved with strange, twisting shapes, and the glass was so clear it felt alive. I stood between them, and the infinite tunnel of reflections stretched out, me after me after me, forever. But the deeper I looked, the more wrong it got. Far down the tunnel, one version of me raised a hand, beckoning. Another moved before I did, stepping closer to the glass. I stumbled back, head spinning, and when I checked my watch, an hour had passed in what felt like seconds. I stopped going to the basement after that, but the mirrors were everywhere, and time started slipping away. The journal had a ritual, a way to trap whatever was in the mirrors. It was desperate, scribbled in Elias's frantic hand, candles in a circle, a personal item, a chant repeated 13 times, and a black cloth to seal the mirror. I chose the bathroom mirror, the one with the handprint. I gathered candles, an old watch my dad gave me, and a cloth I'd torn from a curtain. I started the chant, my voice shaking, the words feeling heavy, like they carried weight beyond sound. I was halfway through when a bang shook the house, loud enough to rattle the walls. The mirror warped, the glass bending like liquid, and my reflection, it moved. Not with me. It stepped forward, hands pressed against the inside of the glass, staring at me with eyes that weren't mine. I dropped the cloth, the candles snuffed out, and ran. The ritual had failed, and something was loose. Reality started to fracture. I'd walk into a room and see myself in the mirror, standing there, even though I was across the house. Footsteps echoed behind me whenever I passed a reflective surface, the kettle, a spoon, a window. I set up my phone to record while I slept, desperate for proof I wasn't losing it. In the morning, I watched the footage, my body, reflected in the bedroom mirror, standing in front of it all night, staring at the glass. But I hadn't left the bed. I checked the sheets. The floor, no footprints, no sign I'd moved. The world felt wrong, like I was slipping between what was real and what wasn't. I caught myself doubting my own hands, my own voice. Was I the one moving, or was it the thing in the mirror? One night, my reflection spoke first. I was brushing my teeth, avoiding its gaze, when I saw its lips move in the mirror before mine did. It mouthed words I hadn't said, too fast to read. The next night, it spoke out loud, a low, rasping voice that wasn't mine. "You're the reflection now." I tried to answer, but my throat locked up, my voice gone. The reflection kept talking, taunting, describing things I'd done that day, things I hadn't told anyone. I smashed the bathroom mirror that night, glass shattering across the sink, but it didn't stop. Every reflective surface showed it now, the thing that looked like me but wasn't. It smiled when I didn't, moved when I stood still. I was losing myself. I decided to leave. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and ran to the car. The road stretched out, empty under the moonlight. But no matter how far I drove, the house kept reappearing on the horizon. My GPS showed a location that didn't exist, coordinates that looped, numbers that didn't make sense. I glanced at the windows, and they reflected the inside of the house, not the road. In a panic, I smashed the rearview mirror, and blood oozed from the shards, thick and dark, like the glass was bleeding. I turned back, defeated, the house waiting for me like it knew I'd return. I was trapped, not just in the house, but in something bigger, something that bent reality around those mirrors. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a hammer and started smashing every mirror in the house. The hallway, the dining room, the guest room glass rained down, cutting my hands, my arms. With each shatter, I saw flashes of something else, a child screaming in a burning room, a woman engulfed in flames. Me standing over a grave, my hands covered in dirt. I saved the basement mirrors for last. The infinite tunnel was gone, but the shards showed fragments of a life that wasn't mine, me walking out the front door, driving away, free. But I was still here, hammer in hand, bleeding. The reflection had won. It had taken my place. I woke up the next morning, or maybe it wasn't morning. Time didn't feel right anymore. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I stumbled to the nearest mirror, a cracked piece still hanging in the hallway. The man staring back wasn't me. His eyes were too sharp, his smile too wide. He tilted his head, mocking me, then turned and walked out of the frame. I pounded on the glass, but it was solid, unyielding. I was trapped behind it, my voice gone, my body no longer mine. The imposter was out there, living my life, while I was nothing but a shadow in the glass. A new family moved in weeks later, or maybe months' time is slippery here. I saw them through the mirrors, their reflections faint but real. The daughter, a girl with wide eyes, stared at me one day in the hallway mirror. "There's a man in there," she said. "He's scared." Her mother laughed, ruffling her hair, and told her it was just her imagination. But that night, the mother paused while brushing her teeth, her reflection catching her eye. It smiled first, a slow, crooked grin. She froze just like I did. I wanted to scream, to warn her. But I'm only a reflection now, trapped in every mirror in this house, watching as it begins again.